Asian Boss Girl is brought to you by Anchor, an easy way to make your podcast and get it out into the world. It's free, has creation tools that allow you to record and edit right from your phone or computer, and will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and many more. You can also make money from your podcast on Anchor with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. Welcome to ABG, Asian Boss Girl, a podcast for the modern-day Asian American woman. I'm Janet.
I'm Helen.
And I'm Mel.
This episode is dedicated to the wondrous, sensual, powerful, confusing, beautiful, sometimes hairy topic of our vajayjays. We indirectly touch upon our vaginas on the Poops and Periods episode way back in season 3, episode 24. It was about time we dedicate another episode to a very active part of our bodies.
Yes. So to start us off, here are some definitions from our trusty source, Google. And according to Healthline, when people talk about the vagina, they're usually referring to the vulva, which is the outer part of the female genitalia. Genitalia. That sounds like also an Italian dish. The vulva includes the labia, the vaginal opening, clitoris, and urethra. So
I think it's genitalia.
Just yeah. Okay, thanks, Helen. I never address it that way, to be honest, but thank you for clarifying me. To get real medical here, the vagina is a muscular canal lined with nerves and mucous membranes. It connects the uterus and cervix to the outside of the body, allowing for menstruation, intercourse, and childbirth. But according to Urban Dictionary, which we haven't done since, season 1 in the Fuckboy? The vagina is the reason life exists. Yeah, you heard it.
That's true.
Mm-hmm. The source of addiction for even the most tough-minded men. Oof.
Yikes.
The only place the penis truly feels at home. I'm rolling my eyes right now. Yuck.
Or in your own hands, men.
Please. Yeah.
So let's share with our listeners some of our own personal experiences with our vagina. And we're going to start from the very, very beginning. Ladies, what is your earliest memory of your vagina? And what activity did it involve?
I think the first time I really thought about my vagina goes back to when I got a hold of a Tampax box, and the instruction sheet showed me what the anatomy of my body looked like on the inside. And that's the first time I was like, oh shit, the vagina is like a thing. Mm-hmm. But another memory I have is probably, I think it goes back to like middle school when I was curious. And I went to the bathroom, locked the door, picked up a mirror, undressed, and I looked at my vagina. Have you ladies done that before?
No, it's so funny you mentioned that because I'll talk about it when I talk about my experience. But I read a book and there was a picture of someone doing that, and it made me curious about doing it, but I never did it.
Oh yeah. No, I just remember being like really ashamed of being so curious what it looked like, and so afraid that someone would like also walk in on me even though the door was locked. And I was also like very, very shocked at what it looked like because I had not like watched porn or anything by that time. And I remember thinking that it's just like a really weird looking part of the body. Like the closest thing that you can probably compare it to is like a combination of your lips and your ears.
But you know what? Also, you did that during middle school because your vagina, it changes, right? When you're really young, and then when you're going through puberty, and then when you're a much older woman, and then even after childbirth, it looks different.
It does. I don't think I've looked at it since then, but Mel's like cracking up.
Because I just pictured this ear in a vagina. No, an ear.
An ear and a lip
like mixed together.
Isn't that the best? Like, isn't that the closest thing?
That's a good name.
On your body that you
those
can
are good comparisons.
No, that's exactly.
It's not a toe.
I hope not. I don't know.
That's really funny.
How about you, Mel? Does yours involve a mirror as well? It sounds like.
Well, okay. So when Helen brought up that the story of her like looking at herself with the mirror, my first memory of a vagina was actually in middle school. We were in the library and we were just kind of like browsing through books, and I think I chose a book that's like kind of like a coming of age for like a younger girl, and it was a chapter book about this girl learning about her body and stuff. And then I remember she heard about the anatomy from her teacher, and then she like was encouraged to look at her vagina with the mirror. And I think that was the first time I was like, oh, that's something like, you know, women can do to explore their body parts and stuff. But I think for me, I was like afraid to do it, so I didn't do that actually. So props to you, Helen, for exploring your down there early on. I do think I also relate to Helen in the sense that like I didn't really explore my vagina until I really like had to put a tampon up there because I actually got my period at a young age. I think I mentioned in an earlier episode. I got my period when I was 10, and I always used pads. But when you use pads, you don't only look at yourself down there. You just put it on your underwear and you pull your pants up. But it wasn't until high school that I really wanted to go swimming that I was encouraged to use a tampon, and I did not know which hole it was because I was so confused that my vagina did not have a hole or look like a hole. Because, when it looks like lips, you're like, I don't know where to stick this up, And
yeah.
So that was the first time I was like, oh, like in between these little lips, that's the hole. So, yeah, I was probably like, I don't know, 14 when I really was diving in there.
Did you use a mirror like Helen for that during that experience?
Yeah, I had a mirror, and then I had support in the restroom by my best friend. She was talking me through how to stick up a tampon up my vagina.
Oh, while you were going through it? Oh, that's nice.
She's like, it's the only thing you can stick it up. It's the only thing that's big enough. I was like, oh, okay, sure. And I was trying to stick up my pee hole, my urethra. So that didn't fit. It didn't fit.
Like, this goes in there?
I know. But yeah, those are my early memories. How about you, Jay?
Okay, the mirror story is interesting because I've always wanted to do that, but I never did because I never had a small mirror accessible to be able to do that when I was in the bathroom.
See Janet with this gigantic mirror trying to look at herself.
So when we talked about kind of how the vagina changes from like youth all the way to adulthood, my earliest memory is actually from like when I was very young and like bath time with my mom and my sister. So it was the first time that I had the concept of like, you have like organs, right? And at that age, you're not thinking about any, like it was in the context of like bathing yourself, learning how to scrub your body, learning how to clean things. And it's important that you clean, the vagina, especially for younger girls. Yeast infections are pretty popular because they don't clean properly down there. So my earliest memory is like looking at the organ really as just like another part of the body, right? But then I do remember in like middle school, because once you start going through puberty, it started to change, right? And then I was like, I remember being really concerned that something was wrong with me because it was starting to get, and maybe this is too graphic in description, but it like changes color a little bit and it gets a little bit wrinkly and stuff.
No, that's true. I see it. Yeah, I get that.
Yeah, and I was really scared. I was like, oh my God, is there something wrong with me? Like, is this supposed to be happening? But yes, if you're super young and you're listening to us, I don't know that you should be, but but that's normal. So, okay, so we shared the earliest memory of you and your relationship with your vagina. Do you remember who it was that you first like openly had a conversation with about your vagina?
Right here on this podcast.
Was it really?
I don't know. It might be, because if I think back to like, it just, maybe this is generalizing, but I feel like within Asian culture, like people don't talk about their body parts in detail, right? I think the first time that maybe the conversation that was closest to my vagina was probably my period, where my mom was kind of just like happy for me, and then my sister Annie, she probably just like teased me and said, oh, now you have to deal with it too, in that way. And so I think the first person I probably really talked about it with was my ex-boyfriends. But it was more of it in like a sexualized way rather than like the beauty of what it is.
Oh wait, I'm curious. Is this like dirty talk? Or what kind of...
I mean, she had peanut butter for a reason. I'm pretty sure she was like, you want to,
peanut butter with the lip ears. Yeah. I don't know.
I did not specify what the peanut butter was used for the record.
It's pretty obvious, Helen. That is interesting.
I think context is more just like where are the pleasure points was that type of conversation. How about for you, Mel?
So my best friends and I from back home were really close. So I remember in high school, maybe this is weird, but like we used to pee together in the same bathroom and just like, alternate. Like we're very open about that and our body parts. So we even like, we would change and like we'll be naked in front of each other. And I think at that point, obviously you're hit with puberty and pubic hair is a thing. And so we started noticing like, oh, you have more pubic hair than me, or why am I so much more hairier than you? And so I think when we started talking about that, that's when I noticed there's like a difference with women. Like, oh, we all are built very differently in even our amount of hair. So yeah, I think I was talking about my vagina since I was like 16.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and I think at that point, like, that's when I lost my virginity. So we were very open about conversation about sex. So I think that also led to sex, and like grooming became a thing we tried to experiment and talked about with each other. Because grooming down there in high school is and you don't know how to wax, it's hard. Yeah. How about you, Janet?
I think that's super awesome that you had conversations with your friends about it. I think my experience is a little bit more like Helen, which is with my friends, we didn't really talk about it. And like I said, my earliest memory was around bathing and cleaning. And similar to conversations around that, like I talked to it mostly with my mom, right? Like about cleaning when you're younger. And then when I got my period, she was the first person that I told and I went to figure out like, what do I do now? Or I do have a younger sister and a female cousin. So I imagine we talked somewhat about it, but it wasn't like not anything that like stands out. And then similar to Helen, hearing about her conversations with her, the people she was dating. Mine was a little different though. It wasn't about pleasure points. It was more, and I'll share the story later, but like I had some issues when I first became sexually active. So it was more of like a serious conversation with someone that I was dating about stuff down there. So.
Oh, now I'm curious what
Me
those
too.
serious
Listen longer into this episode and we'll talk about it.
Oh, okay. Well, I think something that's important to also talk about is the gynecologist, right? Because they are like the vagina expert. So your OBGYN. And an OBGYN, for those of you who don't know, it's an obstetrician gynecologist. And this is a person that is like a one-stop resource for all things related to women's health issues and diseases that specifically impact women. An OBGYN, they'll typically see you through your prenatal care and childbirth, contraception, infertility, and they'll continue seeing you once you are beyond your reproductive years. So the gynecologist itself, it's like I feel like that's almost like a stamp of adulthood when you go to one of those, right? When was the first time that you ladies visited a gynecologist, if you have?
So this is where my story comes in. Yeah, so like Helen is saying, usually I think they say you generally should see a gynecologist either when you turn 18 or you become sexually active. And for me, I became sexually active later in life. So it was when I started having sex that prompted me to go and seek out a gynecologist. And at the time, I was around like 24 and I was living in San Francisco. So this was now like kind of the first time that you're maybe not seeing a family doctor and you're kind of having to find your own medical people. And actually the thing that prompted me to really start going is because this is the first time that I was in a committed relationship where we were just trying to have sex. Like I was just, at that time I was still kind of a virgin. And
what's kind of a virgin?
What's kind of, yeah, what does that mean?
meaning we were trying and it wasn't going in.
Oh, okay.
So, and I know this is like weird, but I think a lot of people probably do have this experience as women where it doesn't maybe necessarily happen like your first time as cleanly. I don't know why I chose that word clean, but as like
it doesn't slip in as easily.
Yeah. It's not as clear cut as this was like exactly my first time. Like there will be times where you try and then it kind of goes in, kind of couldn't go in. I had a lot of struggle, and I think a lot of it is like being nervous and you like tense up, right? And it got to the point where like my boyfriend at the time was like, hey, maybe you should just go see a gynecologist and just like talk to them. Like, I don't know if it's like you're nervous, you're tense or whatever it was. So that was actually the first time I went. So it was when I first became sexually active and was having experiences with my boyfriend at the time where I was like experiencing a lot of pain down there.
Wait,
so
what did your gynecologist say then?
She was like, there's nothing wrong. It's just probably you just need to relax a bit. You know? But it's hard, I think, as a woman because you're not sure, you know that it's supposed to hurt, but you don't know how much it's supposed to hurt. Right? Yeah. So it's just a subjective thing. But yeah. But at least it did get me to go. And of course, when I was there, you do the annual physical and everything. So it was a good motivation, I guess, to start that relationship. How about you, Mel?
I'm trying to think. I literally texted my mom. I go, do you remember when I went to the gynecologist? Because I think I was really young. So I think it was a checkup with my mom. Me and her went together. I think I was 12. And I have distinct memories of her saying, oh, do you mind dropping your pants? I want to check down there. And I go, what? And she was actually just checking to see if I had puberty and pubic hair. So she's like, oh, good. You're growing. You're hitting puberty. And I was so embarrassed. It's like weird, like to have a doctor say, yeah, you're growing pubic hair. I don't know what it was. I may have just felt very like uncomfortable, but I was probably, I want to say maybe like 8th grade to like freshman year of high school when that happened. So this is actually when I would love for you guys to help me clarify. So I started going to another doctor who actually became our family doctor, and my mom goes to her for her female checkups, and I started going to her, for my female checkups. But I get confused of what's like a OBGYN versus like a family doctor, because I think when you guys told me that is if your family doctor your family doctor can do the routine checkups, right? Like the female checkups?
I think it just depends on whether they've been trained. A lot of family doctors, like your primary care doctors, you would go to them for if you have like a cold or like something were to happen, and they're sort of like the first stop. They'll recommend a specialist for you, and then you'll go to like an OBGYN if there's something specific to like something down there that they can't diagnose. But that's why like for example, like my primary care doctor right now, she does also specialize in women's health. So last time I went to go get my pink eye checked, she was just like, do you also want to get a pap smear? And I was like, what? And then I got it done at the same time. So yeah, I think that's like the difference, whether or not they're trained.
Actually, yeah, I should probably get a recommendation from you, Helen, because for the longest time I was looking for, I thought it'd be easier if I could just have my general practitioner also understand women's health, but it was really hard to find someone. I think also because like insurance directories don't list them. They usually are listed as only one or the other. So you're either trying to hit up all the OB-GYNs and be like, do you also do general practice? Or you're going through all the general practitioners and be like, are you also an OB?
Yeah. No, I can totally recommend you to her. She's like amazing. And I never say that about doctors because usually you're just like in and out, and it's like, okay, you checked me, I'm good. But she like gave me a call at one point just to be like, hey, how are you doing? And I was like, what? This is weird. But it was also during Christmas time, so she was just checking in and saying Merry Christmas.
Oh, that is
like,
nice.
Are you not busy? Yeah.
That's awesome. No, but yeah, so that was my experience with like my family doctor, also kind of doubling as like my OBGYN, I guess. Thanks for also clarifying everything for me. This is very helpful. But how about you, Helen? What was your first experience, or when did you first start going to the gynecologist?
Yeah. No, I think the first time I went to one, and I can't remember if I had kind of like your experience, Mel, where you're younger and you just drop your pants. I feel like that probably did happen, but I don't remember that memory. So the one that I remember is actually pretty late in my my late 20s. So I went because, one, I knew it was important, but two, mostly because I had intercourse with someone new. And I think he had shared with me that he had intercourse with like a number of women. So I kind of freaked out because I was like, oh shit, I don't know if you carry something, even though you seem clean on the outside, like I don't know if you carry something down there that, you know, I might have gotten. So I went because it was more of like a freak out moment that forced me to go and check STDs and stuff.
I also had the experience where like I went to my doctor and I wanted to ask her to be like, I can't be like, hey, can you test me so I don't have any STDs because I just had sex with someone new. I didn't know how to say that in a professional way. So she's like, do you want a pap smear? I'm like, yes. Thinking that, please, I need a pap smear because I don't want to have STDs. And I don't know if that's still what you do to test if you
STDs you can also find out through a blood test, I believe.
Oh, okay. Because I didn't know what to ask for, because I think there's other tests that you need to do besides a pap smear to see if you have a disease.
Generally, you can go to your general practitioner, and if you ask for just like blood tests and ask them to check the STD box, they can check that. Okay. But a pap smear will also, I think a pap smear can also pick that up, but it's mostly also for women to check to make sure that
cervical cancer, right?
Cervical cancer.
Yeah, cervical cancer.
Yeah. So you can do blood from an easy finger prick, genital swabs, or urine.
Oh, for STD
check. For STD.
Great to know for our listeners. Yeah. Skillshare is a sponsor of today's episode of Asian Boss Girl. Starting a creative side hustle is not easy, but one a lot of us have a desire for. One of the main factors in achieving this goal is finding the right resources to develop your interests and skills. Skillshare is a great resource that offers classes designed for real life, so you can move your creative journey forward without putting life on hold. As ABG heads into more video content, we turn to Skillshare to help us develop these new skills. From classes like video editing with Adobe Premiere Pro to making your video look like a movie, we're able to take comfort in taking this next step for our business. Explore new skills, deepen existing passions, and get lost in creativity with classes from Skillshare.
Skillshare is also incredibly affordable, especially when compared to pricey in-person classes and workshops. An annual subscription is less than $10 a month. Explore your creativity at Skillshare.com/ABG and get 2 free months of premium membership. That's right, Skillshare is offering Asian Boss Girl listeners 2 free months of unlimited access to thousands of classes. Head to Skillshare.com/ABG. Sometimes when our morning meetings run over and my stomach is growling for food, I go to Daily Harvest. Living good starts with good food, and Daily Harvest makes it easy for me to have good food right in my freezer with little effort. They are a food subscription service that delivers clean, plant-based meals and smoothies to your door.
It's easy to customize and manage your orders, and each item only takes a couple of minutes to prepare. I'm a fan of their sweet potato rice bowl and smoothies, super fresh and super yum. They never use preservatives, added sugar, or artificial ingredients. They work directly with farms, and they freeze organic fruits and vegetables within hours of being harvested to lock in nutrients, flavor, and texture.
In addition to bowls and smoothies, they have soups, flatbreads, and dessert bites too. Their packaging is also now 100% recyclable. Go to dailyharvest.com and enter promo code ABG to get $25 off your first box. That's promo code ABG for $25 off your first box at dailyharvest.com. dailyharvest.com. How did you find a gynecologist, and what did you look for when you looked for a gyno?
Well, I think I'm still looking because I just figure out there's a difference, right? But I think mostly for me, I guess my primary doctor, she also does like women's testing and stuff. And so the main thing I look for really is I do prefer a female doctor. I feel more comfortable just having a female check my female body parts, but that's just me, and looking for experience. So my current doctor does both female tests and my regular checkup. So I like going to her for now. But yeah, the main thing I really look for is just make sure she's also a woman.
Yeah, same. I think when I just think back to when I first started looking for an OB or a gynecologist, and female was probably the number one thing on my list. And then secondly, just generally and this is hard to tell until you like have an appointment with someone, but I feel like the rapport is pretty important because I do like to learn from the doctor. And sometimes when they're like very short with you or they're not very clear about things, that kind of bothers me. But now it's like, I'm going to hit up Helen for her gyno. So yeah. She sounds like informative, and she's a woman. So awesome. Yeah. How about you, Helen?
The first time I went to the gyno was actually a man.
Ooh.
And I think the preferences that I had was just to go during my lunch break. I didn't want to take time out of work, so I went during lunch. So I picked somewhere that was close by to me, and he was the closest within walking distance, and had like good ratings online. Mm-hmm. And so I just went to him, and I felt really comfortable. He was very professional about it. He like showed me everything that the tools he was using and like all that stuff. So I felt comfortable. But I think now that there's been a lot more stories out there, like for example, Andrew Yang's wife, Evelyn, she talked about her like issues with her OBGYN person. I also agree with you ladies that for sure female is going to be like top of the list, and I'll drive out to them. I don't have to walk to them. But yes, my doctor now will be that person, making sure that it's covered by insurance and also female. Yeah.
So do you ladies remember your first pap smear? Like, describe for our listeners who may have not had one yet, like what to expect.
Yeah, I remember. And I did not know that you had to have like a full-on dildo pretty much enter. I was not expecting that.
Wait, yours looked like a dildo? Mine looked like a duck beak.
Yeah, mine was a duck beak.
It was a duck beak, but like it's very phallic looking. So it's just
yeah.
I thought it was a smear, like it's just gonna smear the outside. So I was very shocked when the duck-looking beak thing entered me. But for those of you who have not had an exam yet, I'll kind of like paint the picture of what it's like. So you enter the room, and the doctor kind of steps out so you can undress and put on a gown, and then he or she will knock on the door to make sure that you're in the gown. That's professional. That's what they should be doing. And then they'll ask you questions about if you're sexually active, if you're protecting yourself, what kinds of medication you're taking. And it kind of sounds like a conversation like you should be having with your parents, but never did. So the first time that I went to the gyno was the old Asian man, and I was like, I feel like I'm talking to my dad, and this is incredibly awkward, but it was good. And usually if you go in for just a general check, they'll give you like a breast exam, which I don't remember doing with him. And then they'll also check your abdominals. So they'll press down on your stomach to make sure there's no like lumps or anything there. And then the pelvic exam is when they take the duck looking like beak thing, which is called a speculum. Mine was plastic. It wasn't metal. I heard the metal ones are extremely cold. So they'll stick that
plastic
in you.
Plastic is so much better.
Yeah. Well, he like lubed it up first, and then it goes in, and then there's a hinge, so it kind of like opens up your vagina, and then they can swab the inside for the cervix area. It was very uncomfortable and awkward. How about for you, Janet?
I remember being so nervous for my first pap smear because I had also gone to the gynecologist around the first time when I was like just around starting to have sex. So it's already painful enough to do it when you're like intimate with someone, right? And I knew that the pap smear involved some sort of like opening up of the vagina or something, and I was like, I already can't like get things in there, like this is another time that I have to get a thing in there. But luckily it went okay. And I do recall though that like when they do the swabbing, sometimes I felt a little pinch.
Yeah.
And because what they're doing is gathering like cell samples. But a tip for anyone out there who might be going in for, first time pap smear, is just to like relax, because the more that you tense up, your vagina is a muscle. So it's going to be harder for it to like open up. So the best thing is just like, I kind of do this when I go for waxes too, is just breathe. You know how your wax lady will be like, take a deep breath in. And then when you take a deep breath out is when everything relaxes. She'll do the rip off.
Yep.
I would say the same for like for the pap smear. Just kind of like take breaths in and out, and then like that, like actively kind of release your muscles down there so that it happens more naturally. And it's actually usually over very quickly. So it's like, it's not a drawn out thing. But yeah, I was really nervous, and then now it's like, it's chill. It's okay.
No, I actually totally agree with Janet. Like the breathing technique really helped me relax, because I know I was tense a few times too. I don't remember my first experience getting a pap smear, but the most recent times, I remember I was a little alarmed because, when they swab your cervix, I like to like look at the swab right away because I'm very curious. It's like, when you poo, you want to look at your poo. Sorry, I was looking at the swab and it scared me because I saw that I was bloody. Yeah.
Were you on your period?
I wasn't, and I was kind of like, oh crap. Like it was definitely like a mucusy, like a blend of like mucus and like I guess a little bit of blood, and I was like, oh shoot. And I asked my doctor, I was like, is that okay? She goes, it's fine. Sometimes some cervix, are kind of more sensitive than others, and they will have a little bit of like that type of like the tissue or the red or the blood. So I was like, oh, okay. She said it's normal, but yeah, so don't be alarmed, because like I was. So it's okay if it's a little bloody. Totally aligned with Helen and Janet, the beak thing, and I kind of don't mind it being cold because I feel like it's kind of like soothing in a weird ass way. I don't know. Is that weird?
Soothing?
I don't know. But I will
That is not the word I would pick for that experience.
I know, that's not the...
I mean, it's a little uncomfortable when they start widening your vagina. Yeah, it feels freaking weird, but I mean, I don't mind the temperature of the beak. But
wow.
I'll definitely admit, like, a pap smear is a little bit embarrassing, because there's sometimes I'm like, when I was getting a pap smear, I was like, okay. I was like, oh, yay, I'm waxed. Cool. Other times I'm like, oh, fuck, I'm not waxed. Like, I know it's normal to have hair, but even for me, I'm just like, oh, man, it's weird to show. But yeah, speaking of, it being embarrassing, do you guys have any standout memories from your gynecologist visits or interactions with the pap smear or anything?
So for me, the kind of standout memory that I have with gynecologists, because up until this point, most of my checkups have been super normal. But a couple of years ago, when I was like dating more casually and having more casual sex, always protected, but still it was like with, different people, I was still going to get my pap smears, and I had one pap smear that came back irregular. And I don't know if you guys had noticed in the last couple of years, or all these like commercials, like TV commercials about the HPV like vaccine. So HPV stands for human papilloma virus, and it's the most commonly sexually transmitted infection. So it's not an STD, it's an STI. And it's a different virus than like herpes or HIV. And most HPV infections aren't harmful and they'll go away on their own. But there are some types that can lead to either genital warts or cancer. So I didn't have any symptoms, and I just went in for my regular annual pap smear. And when it came back irregular, she kind of gave me the spiel about HPV. And at the time, it's like the only way that the thing that will change if you get an irregular pap smear is they just tell you to get pap smears more frequently. So instead of once a year, she said, come back in 6 months and we'll do it again. And the way that we tell that you don't have anything, or like, we'll just wait for the pap smear results to come back regular, and then you'll know that your body cleared it. But up until that, so I was like, you're telling me I have to wait 6 months before I can rest easy, And the thing is, I could tell from her demeanor that it was very kind of like, oh, this happens often. But because as a professional physician, you cannot guarantee the patient anything, the words she was telling me was scary. So I remember freaking out and being like, oh my God, is this like, do I have to like tell the people that I've been sleeping with, like blah, blah, blah. And she can't tell you yes or no, right? And so I remember having this really awkward phone conversation with this guy that I'd maybe like been with like twice. And I was like, oh, so I just recently went, and I got, my pap smear came back like irregular, and it, just like it might be this infection thing. And he was like, oh, dude, that's like super common. Like for anyone who's like sexually active, you probably have been or will at some point contract HPV or become a carrier. Because they actually say, I think the statistics are, there are 79 million Americans, mostly in their late teens and early 20s, who are infected. And there are, many types. And it's very common, and usually they clear up on their own. But at the time, I didn't know that. So it was a super awkward conversation that I had with a dude.
That's good that he was open to it, though, and
Yeah.
also kind of like educating you on what he knew to make you not so nervous about what was going on.
Yes. Yeah. No, that's a very good point.
Or was he just saying that? Is that factual? It is factual. You just gave us numbers. Okay, never mind. Because he could have just been like, whatever. Let's continue.
Actually, yeah, no, that's true. How I could tell is that he actually had been in the Navy for a period of time. And so as part of the Navy, the guys will sail to different places. And he's very like germophobic and very like health conscious about that stuff. So he was like, they educated us very thoroughly about like sexually transmitted diseases.
I see.
And he did say though that like, and for HPV, it is like guys can be carriers, and I think it's like less likely that they'll show signs. And there is a small chance that if you get HPV as a guy, it increases your chances of some sort of cancer, but it's like a rare cancer and it's kind of very rare. But yeah, so I guess for those of you out there, like educate yourself, know HPV is a thing. It's probably more of a big topic for women. If you get an irregular pap smear, it's no reason to freak out, but it is something to keep an eye out for.
That's good to know. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah. How about you, Helen?
Standout memories from the gyno. I think anytime I go, it's more like I think it's kind of like I mentioned this during the waxing episode where you're lying on the hospital bed and you're kind of just like getting nervous and you're like, don't get wet, don't get wet, don't get wet.
I could totally see Helen. I know, having the
I could relate to that
she's
so
sitting
much.
there smiling, and her mind is just like thinking that repeatedly.
It does, and every time I'm there, that's all I'm thinking because I'm like I don't want to. Well, the thing is that women get wet when they are sexually excited, but I think when there's also, for example, if you take a specific type of birth control pill or your estrogen rises, there's an increase to the production of vaginal fluids down there. So it's not. It doesn't just happen when you're sexually aroused. So that made me feel a little bit better to know that. But at the same time, I was just like, but what if they think I'm enjoying this? So that's my only real awkward story with getting pap smears.
I could actually relate 100% to like the not get wet thing because I will say I'm definitely a type of woman that I produce a lot of fluids naturally, not even when getting checked up. Non-sexual reasons too, but I remember going to get my pap smear and I was like, fuck, they stuck that beak in and I was like, oh shit. Like, and, no, I wasn't sexually aroused, but I was like, I could feel myself producing a little bit more and I'm like, crap, this is so embarrassing. Like, I don't like, but luckily, my gynecologist was a woman, so it was fine, but it's just a little like, I think it's so tied, like, discharge is so tied of being turned on. You're like, I don't want you to think I am, like, but... You're sticking something up there, and part of me is like, I was trying to avoid contact with the beak after she pulls it out, but I like peeked to look, and I was like, crap. So I get you. I'm on the same page.
I mean, they've done it so many times that it's just like, it's nothing to them now. But obviously it's something that we worry about.
It's like equivalent to, when a guy gets their annual checkup and they're like, the guys have to cough and then they squeeze the balls or something. It's like if a guy were to be erected. It's the same thing like, oh, I'm not turned on, but like it's sometimes it's natural.
Yeah. So other than pap smears and HPV, there are a couple of other kind of like common medical related vaginal topics that we've had a lot of listeners write in about.
Is it vaginal or vaginal? I think I've been saying vaginal this whole episode.
It's vaginal, no?
It's vaginal.
Vaginal? I think it's vaginal.
Vaginal, okay. No.
Vaginal. We can use either. So let's say a thank you to Sabrina L. and Yoni C., who are both working at healthcare companies, for giving us the lowdown on UTIs, yeast infections, vaginal thrush, bacterial vaginosis, in hopes of shedding more light on women's health. So we're going to kind of go through some of these in this following section.
Yeah. Well, I think it's important to talk about the things that go on down there because I think a lot of times things happen and we kind of just like try not to think about it or brush it aside until it gets really bad, right? UTIs are very, very common. For those of you who don't know, they usually occur when the bacteria living in your bowels go from your anus to your urethra. And the reason why women get UTIs more often is because our urethras are much shorter than men's. They have one too. So the bacteria has an easier way to sort of climb up there and cause an infection. And the signs and symptoms that you would feel is like a prickly, stinging, or burning sensation when peeing, or an urge to pee often. Usually your pee is going to look cloudy or bloody or even be smelly. And there's like pain in your lower abdomen too. And so the way to treat that is sometimes it'll go away by itself, but you can also go to a doctor. They might prescribe antibiotics for you. And another way to prevent it is cranberry tablets or cranberry juice. That's good for prevention. Drinking plenty of water and wiping your vagina front to back. Not back to front.
That's very important.
Very important.
Yeah.
Yes. And make sure you also pee after having sex. That is something that someone had told me at some point, and I always do that now because I'm just like, I don't want any bacteria down there. I want to pee it all the way.
No.
Yes.
Same, actually. I started doing that a lot more after someone told me to. And also my roommate in college, not the ones I talk about a lot, but one of my other roommates, she used to always get UTI. So she always had a bottle of cranberry pills, like just lying around.
Aww.
Yeah. The next thing to talk about is yeast infection. So this is typically caused by an overgrowth of a fungus called Candida, which normally lives inside the body and on your skin in small amounts. However, some factors such as, antibiotics, pregnancy, uncontrolled diabetes, or a weakened immune system, even from stress, can upset the balance of bacteria in the vagina, causing yeast to multiply. And without intervention, yeast thrives because the vagina is wet and warm. And 3 out of 4 women will have at least one vaginal yeast infection during their lifetime. So don't be stressed if you have one. Honestly, I had a couple of yeast infections. I know this also happens a lot sometimes when you have new sexual partners, just the imbalance of fungus and things down there that might cause this to happen as well. So the signs and symptoms, the most common symptoms of yeast infection, extreme itchiness in and around the vagina. Other signs and symptoms my experience include, burning, redness, and swelling of the vagina and the vulva, pain or discomfort when urinating, pain during sexual intercourse, soreness, and a thick white vaginal discharge that looks like cottage cheese and does not have a bad smell. The way you could treat yeast infections, you can buy over-the-counter antifungal cream or tablets that you put in your vagina, and your doctor can also give you a prescription. And I actually have tried both over-the-counter, and I talked to my doctor about this. So usually when you take the pill, it goes away in probably a few days. Did you guys both have any yeast infections before? Or?
I don't think I have. There are definitely some times where there's more discharge than normal. I've never gone to a doctor or gotten a prescription for it. How about you, Janet?
Yeah, I think I had it more when I was very, very young. But in the last 20 years, I have not really had issues. Although there was that one time where I think in one of our episodes, I thought I had a UTI. I'm in hindsight, that probably was yeast infection. But that's once in the last 20 years. Yeah, so... Vaginal thrush. So this is, I've heard of UTIs, I've heard of yeast infections. Vaginal thrush I had never heard of, but it is an infection of the vagina or vulva with a yeast germ called Candida. So that sounds like it's similar to a yeast infection in that way. But there's also bacterial vaginosis, or BV for short, which is a different type of issue. And that occurs when there is more harmful than good bacteria in the vagina, and that will result in vaginal discharge. There's also trichomoniasis. Trichomoniasis.
Mona Lisa?
Trichomoniasis. Yeah, I think that's, I'm pronouncing it right. And it's caused by a parasite and spread through unprotected sex and is the most common curable STI. So my general takeaway from this is actually there's these symptoms where whether it's itchiness or from bacteria overgrowth or yeast type buildup or discharge, it could be a number of different things. So it's probably always good to just be aware that it may not be a yeast infection, it may not be a UTI, and of course, try the recommendations that we gave, but make sure that you establish a relationship with the gynecologist so that you can be taking good care of your female parts. With a lot of our purchases shifting to online stores, e-commerce companies have been making changes to update their delivery services. Here at Asian Boss Girl, we've been using ShipStation to manage and ship out our merchandise. With just a few clicks, we're able to print out labels and get our products out the door.
No matter if you're selling on Amazon, Etsy, or your own website, ShipStation brings all your orders into one simple interface, making them really easy to manage from any device, even your cell phone. And ShipStation works with all of the major carriers like USPS, FedEx, UPS, and even Amazon fulfillment. You can compare and choose the best prices and solutions for you and your customer.
And right now, Asian Boss Girl listeners can try ShipStation free for 60 days when you use offer code ABG. Make sure your business is ready to meet the demands of delivery culture. Get started at ShipStation.com today. Click on the microphone at the top of the ShipStation homepage and type in ABG. That's ShipStation.com, then enter offer code ABG. ShipStation.com. Make ship happen.
All right, so let's get into some of the fun parts. Sex and masturbation.
Ooh.
Do you know where your clitoris is? I know I'm not saying that right. Clitoris. Clitoris.
I'm gonna be completely honest. I don't do a whole lot of exploring down there. So if I had to like pinpoint it, I don't know that I really could. But here's something that I've kind of been told by a couple of dudes is that I think the placement of my clit is like kind of more inward and a little bit to the side. So it's like a little harder to find. Mm-hmm. I don't know. How about you, lady?
I was gonna say, like, that is one thing I know for sure. I could close my eyes and touch it right now if I really wanted to.
Mel, put your hands where we can see them.
Right here. You can see my hands. I'm waving at them with both hands.
We're on a Zoom call.
Honestly, I think this is something, when you start masturbation at a young age, you start exploring yourself down there. I think it's something I'm like, oh, this feels good. So I kind of knew where it was right away.
Well, I know the general area, but I don't, like, if I had to, like, open up and, like, point to the actual, like, place, I don't know that I could do that.
So I think it's where your inner labia sort of meets and forms this little hood. Mm-hmm. It's known as the clitoral hood, and it's like a small, like, thing.
It's like a pea.
Hidden under there, so you can't really see it. But it's, yeah, I think it's usually at the top, top of your vulva.
How about you, Helen?
I also just learned that the clitoris has 8,000 nerve endings, which is double the amount of nerves in the penis. Did you know that?
Oh. I think that's why they said it's kind of like hidden, right? Because if our clitoris was just out like a penis, you would get like overstimulation all the time.
Oh, that's interesting. I like that. I don't know if it's factual, but I like that.
Yeah, I know in high school, my friends and I would talk. There's this girl that actually had her clit pierced, and she ran into issues when she would run track or whatever. She would run. So she'll like probably have a lot of orgasms, because it's rubbing against it, because it's like even heightened in sensation. To be honest, now that I'm talking about it, I'm not sure that was just gossip or a real story, because that was like 10 years ago.
I'm also wondering if you were to pierce your clit, doesn't that like desensitize some of it?
I don't know, man. I would assume that would heighten the senses.
Yeah.
Oh, because it's something that's moving.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That would like move against moving. It.
Yeah.
I'd be afraid of like damaging some of the nerves down there.
Yeah. If you're a listener and you have your clit pierced, please write into us and let us know what it's like.
Yeah, we're curious. Wait, Helen, do you know where your clitoris is?
I do.
Okay.
She just explained it.
I don't know if she Googled that definition or she, through self-exploration.
I know where it is. What's funny is that we actually got Janet a vibrator for her birthday. Because, we know she's living alone and, she hasn't had too many sexual partners recently. So we got her a very cute Dame vibrator, which we actually have a partnership with. So if you want a discount on Dame, go to asianbossgirl.com/partnerships. But we got that for her. And I don't think you've used it yet, Janet. Have you?
No. It is a beautiful product, I will say. But no, I don't. I think we've talked about how like with masturbation, like I don't like penetration, and I think that particular one is not about. It's just a vibration or a vibrator. It doesn't penetrate. But even then, I just feel like I'm really old school and just like I kind of just use my hands. I don't using another tool or item. It's also it's like when you have the urge, like I don't want to like get out of bed and then go like grab the thing. Yeah.
Well, Helen and I actually both got products that we're trying out. Honestly, I haven't tried mine yet because I have a roommate. I don't want her to hear the vibration. But here's the thing. I'll say this. I know with sex toys and all this stuff, it's a little hesitant. You're hesitant to try it, but I will say, talking to a lot of my single friends and just women who are isolated right now, it's a good time for you to explore your body down there. Like I do want to understand more about my vagina, my clitoris. So maybe like these toys can help you kind of explore. And like talking to my girlfriends, they have told me that toys have helped them actually understand their body a lot more. So if you guys are in this time right now where you actually maybe don't know where your clitoris is or having problems with orgasms, I think a sex toy is a really good option for you. So yeah, check out our partnerships with Dame to see. They're really beautiful.
And I think I heard also most women, like 80% of women, need to have the stimulation on the outside, so in the clitoris area, in order to orgasm. So not a lot of people can actually do it through penetration.
Yeah. Heard that too.
Fun facts.
Yeah, but speaking of sex, what is your preferred contraceptives, ladies?
I mean, I only have one partner right now, so the only thing that we are trying to do is protect ourselves against having a baby at a time when we're not ready to. So, yeah, I'll let people imagine what that is.
I don't want to imagine that. I know. We always joke.
Just because he's like a brother to
No,
us,
that's
so it's kind
exactly
of a strange
why.
thing to...
I know. Someone's like, you always tell me you want me to share more, but then when I share, you get grossed out. I was like, it's only grossed out because like I know who your partner is, and he feels like a sibling. That is the only reason why.
Mel, what is your preferred method?
Okay, so when I actually was first sexually active, I did go on the birth control because I do think when you have a partner, birth control is, I don't know, I liked it because it actually regulated my period, and I actually don't like the feeling of condoms, so I used to just use birth control when I was sexually active, and then I got off of it when I was 20. And then I got back on when I had my last boyfriend because, again, I had a solid sexual partner. And then if I were to hook up, which I might have done with that friends with benefits person, I really encourage condoms because you want to protect yourself at all costs. So I use both condoms and birth control.
It's maybe good to distinguish for our listeners. I know birth control and condoms are the two most common, and the pull-out method, right?
Yes.
And know that you're thinking about pregnancy, but you're also thinking about STDs. So if you're at an age like Helen where you are okay with maybe having a child and you're with a committed partner, so you don't really care about STDs, right? And the preventing a birth or like a pregnancy is less of a huge concern for you versus say like Mel, when you were with a partner, but you were much younger and you don't want to have a baby, but you guys are one partner the whole time. So you can get tested and know for sure you're not passing anything, then birth control works, right?
Yeah.
And then if you are both have multiple partners and concerned about pregnancy, using both forms of birth control and condoms is a smart thing to do.
Yes.
So for most of my adulthood, I did use both birth control and condoms. I went off of birth control in the last 4 years maybe. And that is because I noticed that it was like kind of messing up my period a bit and I didn't really want to do that. So once I did that, condoms are now my preferred form of contraception. But how about you ladies? Have you ever taken birth control? Or I know Mel shared some of your experience.
So when I say birth control, it's like the tablets. I know there's different types of birth control, but I consumed my birth control. I mentioned I was on it for a few years. I actually was on it when I wasn't sexually active because I liked that it regulated my period. But after a while, I realized there's no point in this. So I stopped being on birth control after I was 21 and I wasn't sexually active. I think for me, I go on birth control when I know I'm either one sexually active or I have a long-term partner, and I'm not on it because I don't have that. Helen, did you ever try birth control?
When I was first sexually active, I just used condoms because I think even going to the doctor and asking for a prescription for birth control was very awkward. So it took me a while, maybe until my early 20s or so, for me to start asking my doctor to prescribe me something. And I remember that, I think similar to you, Janet, my period was kind of being irregular because of it, even though I heard that usually it's supposed to regulate your period. And then also I was starting to break out from it and gain weight from it. So I took birth control for a pretty short period of time. And I know that there's a lot of different types out there too. So you kind of have to try many different ones to get to one that works for your body. But beyond that, it's mostly been just, condoms. Speaking of contraceptives, have you ladies ever had a pregnancy scare?
Ooh, I have had a couple. And both while I've been in a committed relationship and also during periods when I was just kind of dating casually. Obviously, the latter is much more scary, right? When you're thinking about the repercussions. Yeah, it can be incredibly terrifying. I have memories of, this is I feel like San Francisco is the time, or where I was when I spent a lot of my 20s when I was casually dating. And I just remember at times going to the drugstore by myself. Because it's also if it's someone you don't really know, that was your sexual partner. I mean, you know them, but you don't have an established relationship. You don't want to freak them out before there's any reason to freak out, right? But even just going through that experience by yourself, you're I'm going to go buy a test. And then I'm going to go and take the test, and I'm sitting there in anticipation looking for the result. Even if you know sensically, if you do the math of when you're ovulating that you shouldn't be, you will always have that question. And I think that those the hour that it takes for you to first realize you're not getting your period or a couple of hours and you go into the drugstore and seeing the test results, you start to run through all possible scenarios in your mind. So it can be really scary, but yes, pregnancy tests. Thank you for someone for inventing them. I don't know. How about you ladies?
One of the previous episodes, I did mention I did have a pregnancy scare when I was 16, but I was because I was extremely paranoid. Like, I think when you're younger, you don't know, you think pre-cum is a thing. So for me, I thought pre-cum would get me pregnant, which I think it can actually. But I was extremely paranoid. I ran to the drugstore. I got a test. I got a pregnancy test. Tested negative, but I still was paranoid. And I ended up telling my mom. My mom took me to the doctor's. And she brought me to get a blood test. And I tested negative, so I wasn't pregnant. But yeah, it was a very scary time. But having my mom there really comforted me. And knowing the fact that she was really open to this. I know sex, talking about sex with your parents is very difficult. But having a mother who was like, she did tell me when I was getting sexually active, she was like, I'd rather protect you. I can't stop you from everything. But the only thing I can do as a mother is protect you from all these things. So I had my mom there when I was going through the testing of see if I had a baby when I was in high school.
That's so amazing that she went with you.
Yeah.
I've had a pregnancy scare before, and it was when I was younger, and the condom had broken. And it was with my boyfriend at the time, so I felt safe with him, but at the same time I was like way too young to feel like I was ready to have a baby. So I actually went to go get a Plan B pill, and he went with me to a Planned Parenthood, and I was so nervous. I remember like feeling like I was gonna cry and actually like tearing up walking in there, because you just feel like there's so much judgment on you. It's like, oh, this like young Asian girl, oh, that's cute, like pregnancy scare. So I was just, very, very nervous, but also very thankful that there is something like a Planned Parenthood out there to give you Plan B if you ever need it.
All right, ladies, let's have some fun now. If your vagina had a monologue, what would it be?
So I had fun coming up with this one. I thought if my vagina had a monologue, it would be around, or I guess it's like the character in the context or their story, right? My vagina would be a tantric sex practitioner or teacher, and the monologue would probably be around sharing experiences or anecdotes. Do you guys know what tantric sex is?
No, that sounds like spider sex or something.
So tantric sex is actually an ancient Hindu practice, and it means the weaving and expansion of energy. So the purpose is really to create a mind-body connection between the couple and increase intimacy. And so the reason why people will do this is because they say it should increase the intensity of your orgasms. So it's almost like there's a little bit of a yogic kind of thing in it, right? But it's about like usually the theory is that you should have it really plays up the foreplay, and the sex is happening very slowly, and all the emphasis is on creating that relationship and the heat and the intimacy, and then supposedly that because you're more connected, then your orgasms will be more intense.
Interesting. So what is it called again? Tantric sex?
Tantric sex, yeah.
What's the monologue title?
I didn't really have a title. I just
you mentioned it earlier. Like it would be called tantric sex and.
Oh, like I would just be a tantric sex practitioner or teacher.
Oh, interesting.
I can't teach any of it. I actually have never experimented with it, but it's something I've heard about, and because of like. I do find yoga meditation interesting. It was something that it's like, oh, it's kind of an interesting thing. Yeah,
it's fun.
How about you, Helen?
My monologue would be called "I Want to See the Light of Day."
Whoa.
But because I feel like our vaginas have always been so hidden, it will remain hidden. But I think even in thought and discussion about the vagina, like even earlier when you asked me when was the last time you talked about your vagina, I'm just like, I don't even know if I've ever really done that before until this podcast and this episode. So something that I'm also starting to notice is, and this happened this year, is that I'm actually becoming very thankful for every time I do get my period. And I think about wanting, my vagina to eventually push out a baby and all of that. Like I'm becoming very thankful for my body and my period and my vagina, which I'd never been before. And I feel like your vagina is something that's always just, hidden, double layered for some people, underwear and pants. Janet's just pants.
Yeah.
But it's like super, super trapped in there, So my monologue would be metaphorically that it wants to see the light of day.
Aw, that's beautiful. I really like that.
That is really nice.
How about you, Mel? Yours is going to be like frog sex or something.
Honestly, okay, I actually really struggled with this one. I I don't have an answer. And maybe that's what it is. It's like my vagina. I feel like my vagina or in general, it's like I'm still on this journey. And the first title that came into mind, which sounds really weird, is like I am in control. Like that. It's something about control. Because I do think I openly talk about this with my other girlfriends and you ladies. Is that like I'm not like wimpy in bed, but like I want to be able to like be so fully controlled with my sexuality, with my vagina, with sex, and I want to be like, I know exactly what I'm doing. I feel like I'm not 100% there yet. So it's just like about this person who's taking full on control. Not like I'm dominating the dude, but it's like I know what I want. But at the same time, like we're gonna get this to get there together. So I don't know. I think I do see it in a more sexual way, but at the same time, I started writing a haiku about my vagina, but I stopped because I couldn't think of the last line.
Wait. Read the first 2 lines then.
I have 2 lines in my haiku, and it says, number 1 is, you are beautiful. And I said, Aww. The second one is, you're very sacred to me. And the last one I was still deciding because I do think I'm also someone that I do think sex is extremely intimate. It's a passionate thing. It's fun. But I am not a type of person that will have a lot of casual sex because I do think my vagina is very sacred. Not a lot of people see this stuff. I'm not naked around people a lot. Especially my vagina is like extremely private. So yeah, it's a sacred act. So yeah, that's my work and monologue, I guess.
That was a very good explanation.
Hope so.
Okay, so besides a monologue, if your vagina had a name, what would it be?
Mine would be the mighty Woogina. Sorry. The mighty Woogina. Get it? My last name's Woo. For those of you who don't know, my last name's Woo.
You're about to become a Wang though, so just kidding.
I know, the mighty Wang. No.
Different meaning.
Yes. Mel, how about you? What would your name of your vagina be?
Okay, this is not a really serious name, but I just thought of it because I'm a big Friends fan. Big Friends fan. I know how Monica calls her like the flower. And I was like, oh yeah, the flower. Mm-hmm. My flower.
Oh, Mel's flower.
That's kind of close to mine. I said my vagina would be called Rose.
Oh.
I don't really know why. I like that name, and it's like it's an object, and there's references of flowers and women's vaginas.
And it's really weird. I do associate your vagina with flowers. Like even Jane the Virgin, like it's all through media, you know? It's like a very flower type of thing. But I would never name my fucking vagina Flower.
What kind of flower? What kind of flower? So it's kind of like Janet where she picked a rose. What flower would you most associate it with? Like a tulip?
Oh, maybe a tulip. Yeah, a tulip.
Yeah.
That's a cute one.
Mel's a total tulip.
Total tulip.
Or your vagina's a total tulip.
I could see your vagina being a tulip if I saw it.
Do you want to see it? I'm just kidding.
No, that's okay.
We're in a 3-way Zoom call. I would like to not see it, so let's not do it.
All right, thank you everyone for joining in on our episode today. Women's health is typically seen as such a taboo topic, perhaps especially amongst Asian culture, and many women don't realize that in addition to a dentist, an eye doctor, a primary care doctor, or PCP, it is important that we also have an OBGYN, someone who will address any issues with our fertility, birth control, cancer prevention, and sexually transmitted diseases.
Yes, and women should be tested annually for chlamydia or gonorrhea if they are sexually active under the age of 25. Untreated STDs can cause infertility, so it's so important to spread the word on safe sex and getting tested frequently. Many women also don't know that starting at the age of 30, they should be doing the PAP and HPV test for cervical cancer screenings.
And in the words of one of our ABG listeners who wrote into us, Yoni C., it's important for women to care for themselves because they are usually the ones caring for others, and oftentimes we forget about our own health.
We also have some partnerships that we are happy to share with you. As mentioned earlier, Dame is a female pleasure company, so you can find a lot of different vibrators and fun toys on there. Look for links and codes in our show notes. And for more partnership discounts, head to our website, asianbossgirl.com/partnerships.
You can find us on all the podcasting platforms. We are Asian Boss Girl. Follow us on Spotify, subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, and leave us a rating and review. And if you'd like to support us through monthly donations, you can do so at anchor.fm/AsianBossGirl/support.
We are also very active on social. Our handle is @AsianBossGirl. And if you resonated with today's episode, screen cap the podcast, tag us, and we can reshare on our IG story. You can now also find us on YouTube, where we have started posting some various videos. So subscribe to us at Asian Boss Girl.
And thank you to our super talented editor, Michelle, for working all her magic on our episodes, including this one. Catch you all on the next episode.
Bye!